Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there. It's Dr. Gemma, and welcome to episode 196 of the Cognitive Podcast. Your comments are very welcome. Please feel free to either comment on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com or in our group on Ravelry. Either way, it's been very quiet out there, so I'm looking forward to some comments. As you hear this, we are about 30 days out from CFRX, so that's pretty exciting. Which reminds me to say, in the warm thanks, we're thanking everybody who signed up for CFRX. We're at 29. We're waiting for only 2 payments, so that's really nice. And we're crossing our fingers that everybody can come. We have a few people who are having the usual emergencies that occur in the last 30 days, and I'm over here taking deep breaths because we're going to make it, and it's going to happen. We are looking forward to all the classes. I've gone through them a lot, and I think this episode may be a little brief because I'm not going to go through it again. And I'm not, because a lot of things are going on in the background right now, and I'm a little distracted, and I apologize right now. So if things are a bit abrupt in this episode, it's a little bit wild out there right now. But do not forget that we have 3 wonderful vendors coming. I suspect we actually have more than that, but they're not officially vending. But I'm just going to say, if you want to vend, let me know. I'm always open to the idea. But in the meantime, all the information is right there. There's a link right at the top of the show notes. It says Cognitive Fiber Retreat 10, 2024 in big red letters. So you can find it, hit that link. It'll get you all the information you need. And that link is repeated later in the show notes. It's going to take you over to our Ravelry group for the podcast. And in there, you're going to find the information thread. The first post is the collected information. You should feel free to correct me on any of that, anything you see. The cost is still $30 per adult attendee. You PayPal it directly to me. It's in the show notes, Gemma DW as in dog walk at yahoo.com. Anybody wants to sign up, sign up. Now is the time. You can see we have a link from the hotel in the show notes so that you can click that link and get the group rate at the hotel. But we're in Santa Clarita, Valencia, that whole big valley. There are a lot of places to stay there. There's tons of Airbnb. Wherever you want to be, there is a way to do it. Please remember that the official day is Saturday, September 28th, but many of us will arrive on the 27th because we're there just to meet people and see friends and get things rolling and just kind of hang out a little bit before the event actually starts. And of course, that goes through Sunday morning. Even though the event's officially over, we usually go out to brunch and plan next year's event. This will all be at the Courtyard in Santa Clarita/Valencia. You can see the book your group rate for CFR link right there in the show notes. Please remember that you are welcome to work on anything you want to at this retreat. We have great classes, but you don't have to go to them. You just can come and hang out. We don't take roll or anything like that once you get in the door of the hotel. We just make sure everybody's got a name tag. And those kind of vanish over the weekend anyway, because we all start to know each other, which is beautiful. But having said that, I do always post some free patterns so that you can use the stuff that you get at the retreat. We also have vendors. We have Lisa Souza, Laser Sheep, and Oink Pigments. And they tend to bring supplies that you need. I know Oink is bringing Tunisian hooks this year, and because we have Pachki teaching us Tunisian. So you can work on many things here. A lot of people want a souvenir, and we used to do the annual shawl, but we lost our shawl designers who used to attend for various very sensible reasons. There was no anger or anything like that. They just had life, So we have a bunch of crochet patterns because our classes are mainly focused on knitting. So that's one thing, is to kind of honor both sides. But also, if you want to do a quick little souvenir, that's actually easier to do in crochet. I am biased. So you can see our free patterns in the show notes for the granny square, and then for the crossbody bag that you make from 4 granny squares. And we have patterns for 2 of the woobles. The patterns are free, the penguin or the chick. And then we have the Abbas sock yarn cowl, which is from the mini skeins. So all of this reminds me to tell you, for the granny square bag, I use an eye hook because that gives me a 6" by 6" square. You may have to work on this to find out where you get your 6" by 6" square, or what size square you want. But also, if you're going to do a wooble, that's a G hook of 4.0. The eye is a 5.5, I want to say that. And then if you want to do the sock yarn cowl, I always use a D as in dog. And this reminds me to say, while you're thinking about all these patterns, remember, we are going to have a table of free yarn. I know Steffi Joe is bringing a huge amount of acrylic, which is great if you want a wooble, and also for the crossbody bag. For the sock yarn cowl, I'm not big on wearing acrylic against my skin, but it would work. However, you'd have a much bigger cowl. Our pattern is designed for mini skeins. But at any rate, please be aware that we're going to have a lot of yarn at this thing, not only from our vendors. And the sock yarn cowl, well, remember, we're doing the annual mini skein trade. So that's for fingering weight, and all other sizes just go on the general yarn table. And at the end of the day, there's no rules here. Just don't punch each other. I think that's about it. But at the end of the day, one of us will be gathering up the excess yarn and donating it. And there are a lot of useful things. If I get it, it's probably going to go to Mother Bear. If Jasmine gets it, it's going to go to her groups up in the Northern California Bay Area where she's teaching kids to knit and crochet, one or the other or both, I don't remember which. So it'll all go to a good home. All right. Meanwhile, there is a hook conversion chart for those of you who are confused, because I was raised in the world where Americans used letters for their crochet hooks. I'm really happy that's going away. The more universal system is to use millimeters. So there is a conversion chart there in the show notes. Meanwhile, you may be wondering, but Gemma, what's on your hooks and needles? Funny you would ask. I finished the board silly socks. I'm so happy to say that. I think I finished them Tuesday or Wednesday night. I forget. I'd have to look at Ravelry. But you can see them there in all their stripy glory. The picture doesn't do them justice. They're really pretty. They're really fun. Now this is what I use mini skeins for. I have stopped knitting my sock yarn stash. I'm just using up all these minis because I've got a pile of them all the time. Now you may remember last year I think I made 5 or 6 of the Abbas sock yarn cowls. Those are really, really fast and they're superb. They'll use up your minis down to the last inch. But I love making me some stripy socks. I hate to say it, I do. It's like getting free socks. In fact, no, it is getting free socks. This time I've used up so much yarn on these guys that I decided I could count it as a skein out. So the stash toss is at 25 in versus 48 out. I haven't done much on anything else this week because it was kind of a crazy week, as I'll tell you, in the blather. So going into that direction, I'm going to say the strategy this week is about taking micro breaks. And yeah, this is going to relate to the blather. It's very interesting because it's now the point of the summer where here in California, kids are going back to school and parents are hitting the doldrums. And my patients are all talking about this. I have mostly adult patients. And it's because they're in this kind of never land where the kids are just starting school. They don't have much homework. The parents are kind of missing them and kind of glad to see them out of the house at the same time. And the weather here is still hot. We get our worst weather here, frankly, I think in September. But at any rate, it's still quite warm here. Now, at the same time, the mornings start later. that sunrise now isn't until 6:30ish. And it is cool, I'll say that, but it's kind of squashing those of us who use the mornings to get a lot done because, we're getting up to do our own personal stuff when it's light, but it's not very long from there where we have to be ready to get the kids onto their stuff. So it's getting a little tense. And there's all the prep for school and all that stuff that goes on. And everybody's starting to feel the change of the seasons and everything. So what I would tell you is it might be time for a micro break. Because of inflation here in the States, many of us can't afford any big vacations anymore. We're just trying to keep up. But there is the micro break. And the micro break is where you just do a change of scene. And you can do it on a weekend, or you can even be creative and do it over weekdays, as I'm about to explain. For those of us who are online based in our job, we can take a break as long as we can find a place where we can work in the way we need to work. In my case, with appropriate privacy, you're not limited to working from home. But even if you do work in an office, you can always relocate yourself to someplace closer to the office for a couple days and then use the area to take a micro break. So for me, for example, I'm up here on the side of the mountain, and we used to run away to Ventura every so often where it would be cooler. Particularly, I would run there if there was smoke in our valley from the summer fires. And I could still work from there. I could still drive to work. It was a little more challenging, but it was certainly doable. But I would go home to a hotel at night. And obviously, I wasn't staying at the Ritz-Carlton to do this. But we would all do this. We would just spend a night at the hotel, and then we would move out a little earlier in the morning from the hotel. But it would give us access to a pool. Maybe we'd go out to a local restaurant, or maybe we'd just shop at a different mall, whatever, or window shop. But the idea is don't make it too expensive. Now, Gemma, you just said the dirty word hotel, so substitute Airbnb, whatever you need to do to make it affordable. The idea is you can take micro breaks, and micro breaks come in some pretty strange ways that are also easy and accessible. For example, back in the days when I was trying to investigate all the mountain trails around where I live, I would take a break from work and I would go to a local park and walk the park, and I would do that to condition. And every so often I would get up early in the morning and I would go do an hour to 2 hours on a local trail, and I would time it so I could get back, freshen up, and get into the office. Those of us who work at home, that's now a lot easier. I say it is easier because I happen to live with my back to trails. I'm running on them almost every morning. But the idea is you can work breaks into your day. And you can work it into strange moments in your day. If you have routine appointments and an appointment gets canceled, you've got a park break. You've got a run around the block break. You've got to zip out to Starbucks and hear and see something different break. You've got to go to some affordable lunch or coffee house or whatever break. But taking micro breaks is a good way to string yourself along between your longer breaks. And for us, mostly, the longer break is Christmas these days. And then my son was getting the summer off, but he's entering senior year of high school, so all that's about to shift. The thing is, you need to plan these in advance. You need to think about them, and you need to be careful with them because it's really odd for them to happen spontaneously. Now, if you're me, you may be planning them around certain events and activities. So if there's the county or state fair, you may go out for that. A lot of people were in Ventura last week for the Ventura County Fair, for example. And this week I went off to Tehachapi, as I'll tell you later, for an event for myself. But there are special festivals in the towns. There are all sorts of art markets and craft fairs. They're just reasons to go someplace that give you a change of scene. And when I talk about a micro break, generally, I mean a change of scene, just a refreshing difference in your day. And hopefully it's not costly or far-flung, but it's very manageable for you. Now, how do you get to these things? The easiest thing I know of is credit cards. That we have very strict rules around credit cards. We keep ourselves down to just one each. And the credit cards have to give you something back. So my credit card gives me hotel points. And that's going to come into play a lot for me, that I'm using hotel points to go to CFRX this year. I'm using hotel points for a few days here and there in other towns. Now, how do I get the hotel points? Well, I used to get them by staying in hotels, but that's almost unmanageable for us now. But the credit card, every time I use the credit card, I get hotel points. So obviously I'm going to use the credit card to get them anywhere I can. Now, if you're going to do that, there's a few rules, and you need to really live by them. One is I only use the credit card when I can pay it off right away. So we're buying our normal subscription to something that we get like every 6 weeks, like our meat box. Okay, so I put that on the credit card because the minute I get billed, I will pay that off right away. That I save that money every month, so I have it there put aside so I can pay that off. So I don't let that earn interest on the credit card. But if I use the credit card for it, I'm going to get, I think I get twice the amount in points. So if I spend $100, I'm going to get 200 points and so on. That actually builds up, but you have to be very careful doing it. A few places to watch. If you do it on anything related to your taxes, you're going to get a surcharge that they don't want you to use credit to pay your taxes. So they give you a few percentage points of charge. So yeah, when I pay any kind of tax or any bill that warns me about this, I will pay out of my bank account. I won't pay it with one of these credit cards. But everything else that I can use a credit card to earn points on, I do. And normally, I go into my credit card account online the next morning, and it will not be charged yet. I will see it as pending. Doesn't matter, I pay it. And the credit card company will take the money even though you don't actually owe it yet. They'll take it a day early because you are making clear that they're not going to get interest on this. So I'm very big on never paying interest because it's just too expensive to do that if you can help it in any way. There are places, the mortgage on the house, where I'm paying interest. So please don't get the idea that I've worked out the world and don't struggle. But anyway, this is one of the painless ways to get travel ability. So if you have a credit card for an airline, or if you have a credit card for a hotel chain, these are ways to do it. And when you do that, you are committing to that hotel chain. But I'm actually really happy with that. That worked out really well in the days of the Starwood program when Sheraton was still a chain. And it's still working out well because they switched over to Marriott. So what I'm going to say is you have to think about how you're going to plan the finances to do the micro breaks. But sometimes you don't even have to leave home, or sometimes it's not going to be all that expensive. If you save up and get a tent and learn how to camp during the good seasons of the year on your micro breaks, that's a way to do it. It's also very family friendly, which means you get to do micro breaks just driving around exploring campgrounds and talking to people and finding out how that works. But the strategy is, now that we're all looking at fall and going ho-hum, it might be time to start thinking about your micro breaks for the upcoming school year. That is when everybody's getting progressively tense. Or maybe you want to think about it for your Christmas break or something like that. Oh, shoot. Well, the runner woman was good this week. We're on week 7 on my 4 running calendars. Well, one of them's on week 1 because it's a calendar that takes you from 5 to 10K and thereby hangs a tail. And I have to say, I finally caught up with my energy level. I'm finally coming back from these races and realizing that I am just a tad sore at times. But it's going very well, so well that I've been adding races. So you can see my 4 remaining races for this year. There's actually 5. I'm looking at a turkey trot on Thanksgiving morning that's local at our community college. But that hasn't started sign-ups yet. They keep saying, oh, when we get closer. And I want to sort of scream at them and say, guys, we're 2 months out. We're close enough. Get your stuff going, because they're saying they're going to have a shirt and goodies. So I hope they're ordering all that. But that's me worrying about their problems, not mine. The good news is I'm over my COVID shot, so that's not hurting anymore. That's nice. And the races so far, you can see the banners for them. There's the Be the Light on September 21st. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's run slightly after sunset. And, we get long sunsets up here because of the mountains. The light hangs around even though the sun goes away. But it's one of these cheap excuses to carry glow sticks and wear fluorescent clothing and whatnot. My son and I will be doing that. Now, of course, when you run and you race, you do your own race. So that really translates into is my son will be dashing off and leaving me in his dust. But we're both going to have a fun time, and he can pig out on all the post-race goodies that I can't eat while I'm catching up to him. Then I have the Monster Dash coming up. That'll be in Valencia on October 26th. And then I have the 10K, which will be part of the Santa Clarita Marathon. That is November 10th, I believe. Somewhere in here, we're going to have a turkey trot, I assume Thanksgiving morning, down at the college campus at College of the Canyons. And then there is a jingle jog going on Saturday, December 21st, in Palmdale. So we get a lot of nice things to look forward to, which is great, because fluffy books, I'm not really doing much in the fluffy books. Is that fair? No, I'm actually reading C.S. Harris. There were 2 books I need to catch up on in the Sebastian and Hero Sincere category, and I will try to put the link in there. And I was listening to the end of The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love by India Holton, who's just so much fun. Because what happened was the last few chapters got action-packed, and I realized I didn't want to listen to them late at night when I was tired and kept falling asleep. So I'm listening to that. Meanwhile, something I really like, well, it's the micro breaks and all the races, and I'm going to drown you with that for most of the rest of this podcast. So I'm just going to tell you, I like those voter protection hotlines, and I'd really like you to circulate that image in the show notes. Put a lid on it. Here's a surprise. We're in another heat wave. It's not too bad. It's getting into the 60s in the mornings now, which is really, really nice for me as a runner. The good news is that. The bad news is, well, I end up running a little later than I want to. So I'm pushing it to get back and get bathed and then get ready for work. But there are ways to do that. Meanwhile, though, we are still laying low and eating cold. And I realized that I should tell you about my standby foods. And I have to worry that some lightning bolt from my late Italian relatives is going to strike me dead when I tell you about the tomato sauce. But my standby foods involve the crock pot and the Instant Pot. And it works like this. I make a good, easy tomato sauce in the crock pot. And then you can just ladle that baby over anything. You can ladle it over sandwiches, unless there's lettuce and tomato in them. Like BLTs, no. But you can just put a few slices of cold meat on some bread and ladle the tomato sauce over it. You can ladle it into a tostada or whatever. Don't pass out if you're Hispanic. I'm sorry. I know that was desecration. It's going to get worse when you hear the recipe. And then I have the 5-ingredient in the Instant Pot recipe as well. So let me tell you first about the tomato sauce. And this is where the Italian relatives are going to strike me dead, because I don't put Parmesan in it. I put a brick of cream cheese. And I put a few cans of organic tomato sauce. I get this canned from Thrive Market. Or if I'm fancy, I'll go buy a jar of Newman's Own. I like their organic sauce. And I'll just throw that in with the cream cheese. And usually these days, I like 1 brick of cream cheese to about 2 jars of that sauce or 4 cans of the tomato sauce. Then I will put in ground whatever, beef, pork, lamb, at least a pound. I will tell you right now, pork will really make the sauce have a rich flavor. That pork is probably my favorite. I will put in 2 pounds. I will mix ground meats. I don't care. And then you put that all in the slow cooker, and I let it go for at least 2 hours to cook the meat on high. And you can add anything else you like. You can flavor it with any herbs or spices you want to put in there. It's going to be great. You can throw Parmesan in, any cheese you have lying around that needs to be used up. And you can pour this over anything. Over pasta. I use plant-based glass noodles that are keto safe. I just had that for lunch. And you know what you get pasta in a sauce if you do that. But again, it can go over a cold sandwich. It can go over anything your imagination lets it go over. If you make steamed vegetables, you can ladle it over that. It'll make a great dinner if you just put rice or noodles in a deep dish and just ladle that over It's pretty hard to miss with it. And then there's the 5 ingredients in the Instant Pot recipe. The ingredients are butter or olive oil for sautéing, a chopped onion, 1 cup barbecue sauce, 1 cup of any brown soda. I like Diet Pepsi best. Diet because I don't want sugar in it. And then 1 pork or beef roast. And yes, it's true, I use a keto barbecue sauce in this. You've heard this before. This is the pulled pork recipe redux, because I've learned you can do this with just about anything. And it goes like this. You put the Instant Pot on saute when it's hot. You saute the onion in the butter or olive oil for about 2 minutes. Then you add whatever meat you're using. This can also be ground meat if you want to. And you're going to brown it on 2 minutes per side. Then you turn the pot off and you add the other ingredients. Then you set the pot on manual for 100, yes, 100 minutes. And when it's done, you just allow it to vent naturally. What am I really telling you? This is a put it on the side, forget about it, and it's going to get really tender recipe. Whatever you get out of that pot, you're going to shred it up, and it becomes pulled whatever. Pulled pork, pulled beef. It can be taco or burrito or tostada fillings. It can be meat that you throw over rice or potatoes or vegetables. You can just ladle the tomato sauce over it if you want. The idea is these 2 recipes will not heat up your kitchen. They're not using flame on your stove. They're basically using cool current, electricity from the wall in machines that don't heat up a lot or don't heat up a room. So these are easy to make, and then you just stick them in your wonderful Big B, Little B clamshells in the refrigerator, and you can keep going back to them and using them for quick meals during the week. On to the blather, can you believe it? Well, the big event is I almost raced. And no regrets about this. It was really very fun, but it was a micro break centered around a race. And then it got a little off the rails. So I'm trying to think when I noticed that there was a race in Tehachapi. And those of you who used to attend CFRs 1 through 8 will remember good old Tehachapi. And it's a nice, cool retreat in the summer, which is to say it was getting to 100 here in Acton on the side of the mountain. Tehachapi was getting to the mid-80s. And they had an early morning race because they had their annual Mountain Days, which is their Chamber of Commerce summer festival, which is really, really nice. They have vendors and food people and everything else, and displays and special shows and special tours. It was really fun. And I saw that first. And I thought, usually when you have that kind of small town festival, they throw in a 5K race, walk or run, to get everybody up in the morning and moving and to earn some money for the Chamber of Commerce. The idea is you get everybody up, you get the town together to go running, and now they're up to go do the rest of the festival. So it works very nicely. So I thought, wouldn't that be fun? So I looked it up. Sure enough, they had the Mountain Gallop 5K. Unfortunate name because one doesn't look at a mountain and go, I'd like to run up that. Most of us are cowardly, but I had faith in them. They did not publish the course, which did bother me, but that worked out fine. But I thought, it's a 5K. It's only 3 miles. Then the next question is, was I trained up to it? And I would say just barely. That I am now running 5K, usually about twice a week. So there's no reason I couldn't do it. And I looked at my running schedule based on the 4 calendars that I'm using and realized, yes, it would land on a day when I was exactly ready to run that kind of distance. That would be appropriate to my calendar. So I said, okay. So then I realized, well, it's about 2 hours for me to get up to Tehachapi. I like to take it slow and stop for iced coffee in Lancaster an hour into the drive and all that. So I thought, well, I could go up Thursday morning because the race was Saturday morning at 7. And I thought, go up Thursday morning. I don't see patients till noon. Drive 2 hours, pick up my packet, drive home 2 hours. Then Saturday morning, I could drive 2 hours starting at 5 a.m., try to figure out where to park, and ... That would be really hard. So it occurred to me, what if I could afford to stay up there? And this is where, bless that credit card, my American Express with Marriott came in. I looked at the points and realized, good heavens, I have enough. I was so shocked. And so I had to stay at their cheapest hotel, which is outside town on the other side of the 58 freeway. And that was fine. It was a perfectly nice place. It's got a Denny's across the street, but more important, it has a Starbucks across the street. So I thought, okay, when in doubt, I can at least get some egg bites if everything goes horribly wrong. So I thought if I go up Thursday morning, I could pick up my race packet. That's why I was going up. You have to pick up your race packet in advance. And this was the only way I could have done it. So I thought, go up Thursday morning, pick up the race packet, get into the hotel, get settled, see patients there because I've got my tablets on a VPN. So I don't have to worry about anybody breaking in or hearing our conversations. And, of course, earphones and microphone. So I realized this Wednesday morning. So Wednesday night, I said to my husband, hey, I want to run this race in Tehachapi Saturday. And he said, well, the beloved son has track that day, so he's not going to. And I said, well, that's good, because then I'll go to this hotel. Anyway, they were in favor of it, so off I went for my micro break. It was beautiful. I got up there probably about 10 a.m., and I picked up my packet, and it was so cheerful and nice. And I went to the wrong hotel, and then I went to the right hotel. And I walked in, and I got an idiot at the front desk. Now, with this hotel chain, I've been very loyal to them for, 14 years. And I have the level of membership because of that. That means I've been loyal to them for a really long time. And I get all sorts of bonuses from that, including that level of privilege never expires. So when you go in, they usually treat you well. I had told them in advance I would arrive early. I told them when. And they seemed okay with that. I get there and I get rude at the front desk who just says, well, I don't have anything for you. Maybe I can get you something at 1. And I was really shocked. I don't get treated that way. She was rude by any standard, but to do it to, a Gold Elite member guest, not real bright. So I walked out really disgusted. And then I realized it was 11 a.m. and Red House Barbecue would be open. And if you've ever been to Red House, you know why I suddenly had a better day. Red House is this insanely wonderful barbecue in Tehachapi. It is the single best place I've ever eaten for barbecue. It is run by Native Americans, and they run it their way, which is they serve huge portions, and they serve till they run out. So you got to get there in time because they're going to run out, and they do all the time. They have huge lines on the weekend. They're incredibly popular. The value is insanely good. I decided I'd go to Red House. So I went over, and to my surprise, they have a thing called the Elder Plate. And it never occurred to me that now I'm an elder. I have been told this by several people whom I love and respect. I just still feel like I'm 19 inside. And so I thought, well, what the heck? And the Elder Plate was a fantastic bargain. It was a side plus 4 ounces of one of their meat courses. But see, when you order 4 ounces at Red House, it's going to be like 8 ounces at minimum. And their sides are huge. So I ordered a garden salad, and you bet they had homemade blue cheese dressing. And they serve it to you in a soup cup. I mean, they give you a huge amount of dressing. This was an enormous amount of food. It was $8. I mean, frankly, I couldn't have eaten at McDonald's that cheaply to get that amount of food and that quality and all fresh and homemade. So I was insanely happy. I think the funniest part was when I did the most white thing I could have done. This young Native girl walks up to me, and I said to her, oh, I'm ready. And she said, oh, that's great. What do you want? And I said, well, I want the Elder Plate. Can I be an elder? I'm not 65 yet. Now, you have to realize, only white people in this situation would check your ID to see if you're actually 65. That is, compared to Native people. Native people, if you tell them you're an elder, you're an elder. Native people work on a system of sharing and trust. Or that's their ideal. I mean, I realize there's going to be exceptions. They don't have the easiest time in a custom that is hegemonically white. Let's put it that way. But anyway, this poor girl got so embarrassed, and she was stammering like, I'm sure you're an elder. You look like an elder. I mean, you don't look like an elder. I mean, you could be an elder. And I just laughed and apologized, and I gave her a huge tip because I was so happy. And of course, after a good meal at Red House, you know the world is set back to rights. It is the good energy in Tehachapi, that place. So I went into their parking lot, sat there, called the hotel, got the manager. I didn't ask for him. I just got lucky. And he was horrified. I did not tell him my horrible story. He figured it out because he said, well, you're already checked in. You're already here. And I said, yes, that's me. But see, your front desk told me that they couldn't do anything for me and she didn't know when they would be able to. And there was the sound of silent horror. And he said, come over right now. We have a place for you. I went over, and that's when I found out he was the manager. I didn't realize he was when I was talking to him. And I got into my room, and I got all things finished and set up in time to see my patients. So I saw my patients Thursday, passed out. What did I do for dinner? Did I go back to Red House? No, I think I just had Starbucks. In fact, that's right. I had 2 egg bites because I was too tired. It was very late. And then I went back and I went to bed. And I woke up at 5:15 the next morning. And it was quite dark up there in the mountains. You know, the sun won't be up until 6:30, but with the way the sun rises till like 7, because it has to come over the mountains, 7:15. And I realized the only thing to do was to run the course for the 5K that was supposed to be Saturday morning. Remember, this is Friday morning. So I go into the race packet. It's a bag and has the shirt and my number and all that. And there it is, the course map. And so I took it and realized this is very doable. So I went out and I did it. And it was just a fantastic run. One of the good things that happened was they'd already chalked it on the ground. So anytime I didn't know what to do, I pretty much could look at the ground and I would find the marks on the ground that indicated where I was supposed to go. So it went off really well. And I did it not in the best time, probably in about 45 minutes, using walking and running, because frequently I had to stop and walk to orienteer, just to figure out, like, is this the road I'm supposed to turn on, until I realized that the marks were on the ground in many but not all the places. So I did it as a very, very happy run. It says on there I did 53, but that includes the after walk. But anyway, so I posted my results there, and it was just fabulous. It was a beautiful, brisk, sunny morning. Everything was as good as it could be. And then afterwards, I went to Starbucks to post everything I wanted to post and record the race in my logs and all that. And you can see a picture of me sitting there in my running gear, smirking at the camera very happily, because I knew I could do the 5K. So that was lovely. And so that night, after seeing my patients, and my poor patients, I barely had the energy to see them, or I shouldn't say that, really, I had the energy. I didn't have the patience. I just wanted so badly to be finished that day on Friday and just go out and walk around the beautiful town in the evening. So, of course, I went back to Red House. This time I had the pulled chicken instead of the pulled pork on my elder plate. And it was fabulous. And I wasn't feeling quite right. That was the only downside. Was I can't explain it, but my heart was pounding and I just felt quirky. Now I know that was my body kicking in because I woke up at 5 a.m. sick as the proverbial dog. No, it wasn't the food at Red House. It would not have taken all night to do what happened to me. I'm not going to go into detail, but I went liquid for about 35 minutes. And at that point I'm saying, can I even run? Because I'm getting so dehydrated. But it wasn't finished. So at any rate, at about 6:20 a.m. for a 7 o'clock race, I realized I can't do it. I can't get over there in time and get lined up. And I also was shaky and weak and lightheaded. And I realized I am not going to get to run the race. And then I realized that I did run the race. I ran the course. I just ran it a day early. And I have my shirt. And no, I don't get a finisher's medal, but I really don't want a finisher's medal, so that's okay with me. I just run them for the shirts these days. So I had a fabulous race weekend. Unfortunately, I wasn't feeling well most of Saturday morning, so I got up and I took a very thorough shower. I didn't have a bathtub. And I packed up very slowly and carefully. And I went over into town and I picked up some COVID tests because my son was getting symptoms at home, but I wondered, had I gotten it too, just on the off chance. I tested myself in the Walgreens parking lot in Tehachapi, no COVID, which is great, and really started rehydrating myself at that point systematically, just flooding myself with water any way I could. And I did allow for caffeine to wake myself up because I still had to drive home, but it kind of made me think that if I had something, I didn't want to go in a crowd of people, and I was still lightheaded and tired, and the town festival was going to take a lot of walking. I made my easy way back down the hill into Lancaster And I picked up an easy lunch in Lancaster, and there's a picture of me in my race shirt at the top of the show notes, celebrating, because I realized, well, I did the race, I just didn't do it with everybody else. That is an acceptable tradition in running. We call it the virtual run. Tehachapi didn't offer a virtual, but I had one anyway. And it's really common that a lot of races that are in far-flung locations will offer virtuals. That is, they just send you a medal and a number. You run, you record it, you send them your time. They record it in their virtual times. And we do that because we know not everybody can afford to do the race thing. So it's very weird because I went all the way up to Tehachapi and ran a virtual in Tehachapi for Tehachapi. I just ran it on the wrong day. I feel great. It really made me feel good to know I can do the distance without any stress. The course itself was a pretty good course. It was gradual uphill for the first half mile. Then it was pretty solidly uphill, not terrible, but enough. And on a trail, a bit challenging. And then on a lot of asphalt and concrete mixed in. And I'd say about the last 3/4 was a steady, easy downhill. So it's a nice course. I have it scanned into my phone, so next time I'm in Tehachapi, I now have a 3-mile course I can run, which was another advantage. You can also see my first meal at Red House. You can see the allegedly 4 ounces of pulled pork. It looks like a lot more than that to me. And my humongous salad half eaten there. I did break my rule and have Diet Pepsi that day because I did. After that, you can see that everything else is pretty good in our world. The beloved son is hacking and coughing with some respiratory thing that isn't COVID, and I don't have it either. So under that, you will see the typical links that I put in for our community resources and the calendar. At the top of the calendar, of course, all the Santa Clarita Valley events for yarn that I know, and also the free craft exchange. And then my calendar. I am so pleased to tell you that the next thing for me on my calendar is in 2 weeks. I will be off for 10 days. Amen. Hallelujah. I got my micro break in now. I don't know if I'm actually going to go anywhere during that time or if I'm just going to be at home and do some progressive deep cleaning, which would make me very happy, frankly. Then you can see my races. The Be the Light 5K is on September 21st. And then a week later, on September 28th, we have CFR 10 at the Courtyard by Marriott, Valencia. And that is extremely exciting for me. I'm looking forward to it. And there is a link right there again for information that'll take you to the thread over on Ravelry. Meanwhile, the Monster Dash is October 26, 2024. And the 10K I'm running associated with the Santa Clarita Marathon is November 10th. On December 28th to December 1st, I have my Thanksgiving break. And I believe I've got a turkey trot on November 28th down at the College of the Canyons. Romule, December 21st through January 1st. I also have a jingle jog on December 21st. Now, I want to talk for a minute about strategy here because in case you didn't realize it, you can see what I'm doing. I'm giving myself events to look forward to and to motivate myself, okay? So as we swing into the darker times of the year, where our moods are a little harder to maintain and the weather gets a little more bleh, this is something I want you to take note of, that I do practice what I preach. That's why I preach it, because the skills I've learned as a psychologist help me in my everyday life. So you are listening to the sound of what I would like you to do. Give yourself things on your calendar that you can look forward to. Finally, Minerva gets the last word. And the last word is welcome home, all is forgiven. I say that because Minerva, when I came in, came up to me and yelled. And I said, oh, look, she's glad to see me, until I realized she was leading me to her 3/4 empty food dish. So I filled her food, and she just acted like, normal day, I see you're here, thanks for the food. And the next morning, Sunday morning, when I woke up, she came in and threw herself across my neck in a way she never does. She usually just comes and lies up against me for a minute. But she threw herself against me this morning and was purring her brains out and was so relieved to see me. So apparently all is forgiven and I have been welcomed home. And I could not resist, since we're talking about all is forgiven, one of my favorite cat memes. And you have to read it to understand the joke. But I just have to hand it to whoever caught that picture. It's one of the great cat pictures. We have an 8-legged cat in it. And the caption on top of it is brilliant. So, welcome home, all is forgiven. We have lots of good things to look forward to, and I'm so glad you were here with me. Please, everybody, remember, go get your shots. If you're coming to CFR, make sure you get your vaccines. We're so looking forward to seeing you, but we don't want to give each other any diseases, okay? I know I sound like an old lady when I do this. It's not about my age, it's about COVID. I haven't really recovered mentally, I think, from the quarantine in some ways. But at any rate, remember, we are a community. When we support the community and the good of the community, we are supporting our individual selves, our individual rights. And when we take care of ourselves, we support the good of the community. But neither one should come at the cost of the other. So on that note, everybody, please stay safe, take care of each other, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.